Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Listen, reflect and absorb. Dear listeners, Sai Ram and welcome to our radio series in which a divine discourse by Bhagavan is played in small parts, and following each part a short discussion is undertaken to reflect on the message. This is a part of Radio Sai's Thursday Live, hosted by Sai Prakash and Prem, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on Asia's stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 30th May 2013. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1990. Today, the clips played are from the discourse delivered on 21st May, 1990.
Dear listeners, as you've been following all these weeks, you're aware that this is a program completely based on the Swami's Divine Discourses, and the series that we are studying right now is the 1990 Summer Course series, a summer course which was started after a gap of close to 2 decades when Swami began the summer course once again, but with a little difference this time for the students of the university. And as it happens every week, I have the pleasure of having the company of my brother from Team Radio Sai, Sai Prakash. Sai Ram, Sai Prakash.
Sai Ram, Prem. I think it's 1 decade. If I'm not mistaken, the earlier set of summer courses went on till about 76 or 77.
Okay, right.
And then Swami started it again in the 90s.
Right, a little more than a decade, less than 2 decades.
Yeah.
Yes, Sai Prakash, we've completed
2 discourses now.
2 discourses. And this is the third one. The first discourse, of course, was about Indian culture, spirituality,
yes,
the truth and the relationship between all this, and Samskriti, the importance of refinement,
correct,
which is the true role of culture. And the second discourse was completely on understanding the body,
correct,
the instrument called body, its impermanence, its value as an instrument, and its role in man's journey towards the truth. And the third discourse, which we will be listening to today, is entitled The Moving Temple.
Correct.
So, which is indeed again about the human body.
Yes.
But it will be really interesting to see what more Swami has to say about it, because so much Swami said in that second discourse.
Correct.
I am really eager to know what more Swami has to say about the human body.
In fact, the wonders of the human body are amazing.
Very true.
And even looking at it scientifically, every part of the human body is really mysterious. And Swami often says, do you keep count or do you pay attention to the fact that your heart continues to beat at night? Are you aware that your lungs are working, that the food you have eaten at night is getting digested? Those activities just go on in the body. And as we mentioned earlier, the brain is really faster than any supercomputer that we have today.
True.
I mean, what a balance in the human body.
Absolutely. In fact, when we look at the human body, among mammals, we are not the largest of mammals.
Correct.
That requires for a lot of optimization in the processes which happen in the human body.
Mm-hmm.
And in chemistry, when we study about enzymatic action, we talk about catalysis.
Yes.
The role of a catalyst is that it is very small in quantity compared to the reactants.
Correct.
But it increases the pace of the reaction so much more.
Correct.
And when we study that, and there is a comparison between enzymes as catalysts and as catalysts we see in inorganic objects. And the job which enzymes do in the human body is phenomenal.
Yes.
And no amount of synthesis or human effort has been able to replicate, what happens in the human body. And I'm sure that there are innumerable number of enzymes we are yet to discover still in the human body.
Very true.
And it's definitely a marvel in that sense.
Correct. But the whole idea that Swami brought out, that this body is functioning and it's working with all its senses. But if you ask the question, we have the eyes, we have the senses, but who is it that is seeing? So I think Swami is really taking us step by step. Right now he has dealt with the body, and then as we discussed last time again, the body dies along with all the senses, but we still say that person is no more. Now that directly links the soul with the person, or the person with the soul. So if once the soul leaves once the Atma leaves the body, the power that leaves the body, then the body is just jada, as they would say.
Absolutely. And if Swami says that, this is nothing but a container, this is nothing but an abode, and if an abode, an instrument and container is so beautiful and so special, Swami prods us to imagine what it contains.
Correct.
The more beautiful the container, if you're going to keep some valuables in a locker.
I think that's exactly how he starts this discourse, the next discourse.
Right.
And he often mentions about Payoji Mene, Namuratran Dhan Payo.
Right.
He says this precious jewel, this precious gem of Lord Rama's name. So that I have kept it in the safe, iron safe, as he would mention.
So I think with prayers to Swami and hoping that he speaks through us in this week as he does always, and he's not only the speaker through us, he's also the one who's listening to all our listeners. So offering our pranams to Swami, maybe we'll begin with the first clip of the third discourse in this series.
Yes.
విలువలేని ఇనప పెట్టెయి దేహంబు విలువలేని ఇనుప పెట్టెయి దేహంబు పెట్టెయందు నగలు పెట్టినట్టులా విలువలేని ఇనుప పెట్టెయి దేహంబు పెట్టెయందు నగలు పెట్టినట్టులా దేహమందు ఆత్మదేవుడుండెను సుమా ఈ దేహమందు ఆత్మదేవుడుండెను సుమా సత్యమైన బాట సాయి మాట సత్యమైన బాట సాయి మాట సత్యమైన బాట సాయి మాట సత్యమైన బాట ఈ సాయి మాట.
This body may be compared to an iron safe which does not have much value, but an iron safe is used to keep most valuable jewelry inside that. Similar is this body. Inside this valueless body there is Atma and God. This is the path of truth, the word of Sai.
దేవుడనగ వేరు దేశమందును లేడు దేవుడనగ తనదు దేహమందే దేవుడనగ వేరు దేశమందును లేడు దేవుడనగ తనదు దేహమందే పాపమనగ వేరు పరదేశమున లేదు తాను చేయు పనుల తగిలియుండు.
God does not exist in some separate country or nation. He dwells in this very body itself. When it is sin, there is nothing like a sin which exists in some foreign country. Sin is basically associated with the deeds that you perform.
దివ్యాత్మ స్వరూపులారా,
embodiments of divine Atma.
విలువలేనిదైనప్పటికీ, అస్థిరమైనటువంటి అయినప్పటికీ ఈ మానవ దేహము ఆత్మదేవునకు నివాసమవుట చేత దీనిని సక్రమమైన మార్గములో కాపాడుకోవటం ప్రతి మానవుని యొక్క కర్తవ్యం.
Although this physical body does not have any value and any permanency about it, as it houses God and Atma, it has to be used properly.
దేహ పోషణ మానవుని ప్రధాన కర్తవ్యం.
Taking care of this physical body in a proper way is a duty enjoined on man.
దృఢత్వమే లేనటువంటి ఒక దేహమునందు మానవత్వము అనేక చిక్కుల పాలు కాగలదు.
A body which is not strong will put man to difficulties and troubles.
మానవ జీవితము దేహమనే పునాది పైన ఆధారపడి ఉంటున్నది.
Human life is based upon the foundation of the physical body.
కనుకనే ఆధునికమైనటువంటి యొక్క వైజ్ఞానమునకు కారకులైనటువంటి రోమన్ దేశం వారు కూడాను ఈ దేహం యొక్క విశిష్టతను గుర్తించి వారు దేహ పోషణ నిమిత్తమై అనేక విధములైనటువంటి శ్రద్ధను తీసుకునేటువంటి వారు.
The Roman scientists who have laid foundation for the various sciences have expounded that this physical body has to be properly maintained.
ఈ దేహము తనంతటికి తానైనటువంటి ఒక ప్రత్యేకమైన ప్రపంచము.
This physical body may be compared to a world in itself.
దేహమనగా కేవలము ఒక ఆకారం మాత్రమే కాదు.
When you think of physical body, you should not confine it to only its
అనేక
form.
అంగములతో కూడినటువంటి యొక్క సమష్టి స్వరూపము.
This is a collection and a conglomeration of different limbs.
ఏ అంగమునకు ఆ అంగము లావణ్యమైనటువంటిది.
Each limb has its own beauty.
అన్ని అంగముల యొక్క సౌందర్యమును కూడాను మనం కాపాడుకోవాల్సిన కర్తవ్యము.
It is our duty to protect and take care of the beauty of each limb of the body.
అనారోగ్యమునకు గురి అయినటువంటి దేహము, బలహీనతకు గురి అయినటువంటి దేహము ఒక దృఢమైనటువంటి సంకల్పాన్ని చేయలేదు.
A body which is subjected to disease and weakness can never contain strong thoughts and sound
పవిత్రమైన
feelings.
దివ్యమైన భవ్యమైన భావములు మానవుని నుండి ఆవిర్భవించవలనన్నా శరీరం దృఢమైనటువంటిదిగాను ఆరోగ్యమైనటువంటిదిగాను ఉండాలి.
If noble, magnificent and great feelings and thoughts will have to emerge from man, the physical body must be strong and sound.
అన్ని మతముల వారు కూడాను దేహం యొక్క పోషణను అంగీకరించినటువంటి వారే.
All the religions have agreed upon the fact that body must be taken care of well.
ఇది అనిత్యము అశాశ్వతము అయినప్పటికీ
It is impermanent, no doubt.
సత్యనిత్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క దివ్యత్వము ఇందుకు నివాసంగా ఉండటం చేత ఈ యొక్క దేహమును మనము ప్రత్యేకమైనటువంటి శ్రద్ధను చూపవలసినటువంటిది.
It deserves special interest and importance because it has housed God and Atma inside it.
కనుక మతములన్నీ చేరి మంచినే బోధించి
All the religions can only tell good things.
తెలిసి మెలుగవలను తెలివితోడ.
But one should conduct oneself with that awareness.
మతులు మంచివైన మతమేది చెడ్డది.
If your thinking is proper, which religion is bad?
కనుక అన్ని మతములు కూడాను ఏది బోధించినప్పటికీ సమష్టి క్షేమమునకే కాని వ్యక్తి యొక్క క్షేమమునకు కాదని సత్యాన్ని మనం గుర్తించాలి.
We have to recognize the truth that all the religions have expounded the need for the collective welfare and not the individual welfare.
మలమూత్ర దుర్గంధ మాంసవృత్తంతో కూడినటువంటి ఈ దేహమునందే దివ్య భవ్యమైన నవ్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆత్మతత్వము రాణిస్తూ ఉంటుండాలి.
The Atma, which is magnificent and noble and great, is shining in this physical body, which is impermanent and transient.
దేహ బలహీనం చేత ఇది తరుగదు, దేహ బలము చేత పెరుగదు.
Atma will not grow on account of its own strength and will not become weak on account of its
పెరిగి
weakness.
పెరిగి తరగనటువంటి యొక్క తత్వమే ఆత్మతత్వము.
The principle of Atma is one which does not grow and
ఇది
decline.
నిరంతరం కూడాను పవిత్రమైనటువంటిది,
It is always sacred,
విలువైనటువంటిది,
always precious and
బలమైనటువంటిది.
valuable. It is always strong.
ఎట్టి పరిస్థితులు ఎందుకును దీని విలువ ఏమాత్రం కూడాను తగ్గదు.
Under all circumstances, it remains strong and it will never decline.
పెద్ద వజ్రమొకటి పెంటలో దొరికిన విలువ మారదు, దాని వెలుగు పోదు.
If you were to find a very highly valuable big diamond in the midst of ordinary stones, the diamond will not lose its value.
మంచి గుమ్మడి పండు కంచెలో కాచిన రుచియు మారదు, దాని చవియు పోదు.
Just because the pumpkin has been grown just near your house in the garden, its taste will not change.
గొప్ప నెమలి గ్రుడ్డు కోడితా పొదగిన వన్నె మారదు, దాని వంచిన్నె పోదు.
Suppose the peacock's egg is hatched by a hen. It will remain still a peacock only after it is hatched, and it will never become a hen.
కనుక దేహం అనేటువంటిది అనేక మాలిన్యంతో కూడినటువంటిది అయినప్పటికీ ఇందులో నిర్మలము, నిశ్చలము, నిస్వార్థమైనటువంటి ఆత్మతత్వము నిరంతరము కూడాను ప్రకాశిస్తూనే ఉంటుంటాయి.
Although the physical body is subjected to various types of diseases and dirt, the most precious, invaluable Atma is residing, which is pure and permanent.
అయితే అన్ని మతముల వారు కూడాను ఈ దేహం యొక్క పుష్టిని, సంతుష్టిని కోరటంలో ఉండేటువంటి అంతరార్థం ఏమిటి?
What is the inner significance of all the religions aspiring to protect and look after this physical body?
దేహో దేవాలయ ప్రోక్తో. ఇది దేహం అనేటువంటిది భగవంతుని యొక్క దేవాలయము అనేటువంటి విశ్వాసమే దీనికి మూల కారణం.
The reason is that everyone has believed that this physical body is a temple of God.
కనుక ఈ పవిత్రమైనటువంటి దేహమును అలక్ష్యము చేయక, అశ్రద్ధ పూనక, తగినటువంటి శ్రద్ధతో దీనిని సరైన మార్గంలో ప్రవేశపెట్టి దీని కర్తవ్య కర్మలు ఆచరించటము మానవుని ప్రధానమైనటువంటి ధర్మము.
It is the most important duty of man to see that this physical body doesn't suffer from any weakness or disease, and takes care of this particular physical body and uses it properly.
కానీ ఇట్టి సత్యమును గుర్తించలేనిటువంటి వ్యక్తులు అనేక వ్రతములని, నోములని, ఉపవాసములని ఈ పేర్ల చేత దేహమును కృషింప చేసుకుంటున్నారు.
But unfortunately, people who do not know this secret, in the name of various vratas and vows, are undertaking such acts which weaken this physical body.
తద్వారా మనము నిత్య సత్యమైనటువంటి ఆత్మతత్వాన్ని మనం గుర్తించలేము.
By undertaking such steps, you will never realize the reality of Atma.
పుట్టపైన మద్దించిన పాము మరణం ఉందున?
By beating upon the ant hill, can you kill the snake inside?
తనువును తా దండించిన విషయభోగములు అనుగున?
By putting this physical body to suffering, can you get realization?
ఆకలి దప్పులు మానినంత ఆత్మజ్ఞాని తానవున?
By merely giving the food and water, can you really become Atma?
తానెవరూ తెలియకున్న తత్వజ్ఞానం ఎతుకులను.
Without knowing who you really are, how can you become a
తత్వజ్ఞానమును
knowledgeable man?
కుదరవలనన్నా తానెవరో గుర్తించడానికి ప్రయత్నించాలి.
If you really want to become a Tattvagnani, you should try to know who you really are.
Even as we're wondering what more can be told about the human body, in different ways, Swami is driving in the same lesson of how important what the body contains is.
Correct. See, there are few points that Swami has mentioned in this segment. He says that we have to take care of the body. And many of our listeners and many of the devotees may not know, but I believe Swami would himself take walks inside his room.
Right. In fact, in earlier days, I think when you were a student in Brindavan, from one of the rooms in Brindavan,
That's right.
that is facing towards Swami's residence,
Correct.
from there you can actually see Swami's dining hall.
Yes.
And there are occasions when boys have noticed that Swami would go around that circular dining hall.
Yeah, his hair would, you could see
a silhouette of Swami,
going around.
moving around. And we were told that Swami used to take walks after his dinner before he goes to bed.
Right, because he maintained his body perfectly. And he would often say that my blood pressure is under control, my weight is perfect, and not more than this, nor less. And he set an example for everything that he spoke.
And what I saw as Swami started this discourse, he starts about that analogy of the body being a treasure trove and the Atma within being the treasure.
Correct.
And Swami is saying that the body has to be taken care of. And Swami is saying that almost every culture and every religion emphasize that the body has to be taken care of. But Swami is saying, but you should know the cause for that.
Correct.
You have to take care of the body, but all the while you have to remember why you have to take care of the body. You have to take care of the body because
it houses
the Atma.
Correct.
Like, you can say that almost every other human being takes care of his body. If you see the range of cosmetics which has come now,
that's true.
And the market is booming in products which take care of the human body.
Correct.
But why you have to take care of the body, that understanding is very, very important, and that has to be kept in mind even as you foster this body.
See, there is one point he makes here. He says all religions give importance to taking care of the body, keeping in mind a collective welfare, not the individual welfare. I mean, that is something I hope we get more clarity on as we go ahead, because Swami has always mentioned that society is a form of God. Like, individuals are there, but when there is a collective, that's why he always wanted that collectiveness,
right?
Unity, purity, divinity. And he would say when everybody comes together and does something, then it automatically goes up. So I think Swami will come to that in the course of the next few discourses. But the interesting point here is when he says, what is the reason for people professing different faiths being agreed on the need to nourish the health and happiness of the body? As we just mentioned, it is because of them regarding the body as a temple of the Lord within. Now, if you look at different religions, of course, in Hinduism we say Deho Devale Propto Jivo Deva Sanatana.
Right.
And Jesus Christ is said to have mentioned that body is the temple. Don't you know that the Spirit of God lives inside you? So this is what Jesus has told in the Bible. And as far as Zoroastrianism is concerned, the religion Zoroastrianism is symbolized by the ever-burning effulgent,
the fire, right.
The flame. The fire actually is symbolic. What they say is, the fire is a symbol of the self-effulgent Atma.
Okay.
And it signifies the divine spark. Now that divine spark is present in everybody. And I believe there is a very wonderful, very beautiful saying that is popular in Zoroastrianism. The saying goes like this: what has the walking friend brought as a gift for the sitting friend? So what it means here is, the body, which is like the walking friend, it does work, it goes, it bends, it does different kinds of activities. But the Atma, which is constant and which is always witnessing, the Atma is considered as a sitting friend. So what has the walking friend got as a gift for the sitting friend? And what is it that is really meant to be offered to the Atma? That is all our actions. All the actions that the body is doing, that should be offered to the Atma. And the Atma is being represented here as fire. Literally means just give up the fruits of all your actions. Whatever actions you are doing, just give up the fruits of all actions. So basically, in a sense, all religions are trying to convey the same truth.
In fact, the point which Swami is making, Swami wants to bring out a clear relationship between the Atma and the body, where he says the Atma is in the body, but it does not grow with the body.
Correct.
Nor does it decay along with the body. And it's like it lives with the body, lives in the body, is in association with the body, but it is untouched by what happens.
As it is said in the Gita as well, neither can you burn the Atma, neither is it born nor does it die.
And that is again why the point which Swami makes towards the end of that clip, that he says, by hitting the anthill, can you kill the snake inside? By subjecting the body to torture, can you realize the Atma?
There's a very beautiful Telugu poem, a 4 lines poem. It's so apt and so beautiful. If you think of it really by hitting the... And Swami would also say, like, if you want to cut the tree, for example, go to the roots. And the more and more you keep cutting the branches, you're not going to achieve it. I think in a way it's also related to what we discussed last time. Like how to give up bad qualities, how to give up bad habits.
Right.
No, you have to attack it at the root of the whole issue. So he says, if you have it, just leave it. You can't leave it slowly. And so everywhere he brings this point that if you know there is a mistake and the mistake is in our understanding of the body, he wants us to immediately rectify it.
And it's always like a myth buster, you can say.
Correct.
Generally we believe the body has to suffer for the soul to progress. But here Swami is clearly saying that there is no relationship between that, and in fact even in devotion, that is it is accepted that you put your body through suffering, and that's when you can get closer to God.
Correct. Here he says, by giving up good food and water, can you attain liberation? See, this is upavasa. And Swami has given the actual meaning of upavasa elsewhere. He says, upavasa, living close to God.
Right.
Upa is close, vasa is living. So living close to God is living close to the Atma. And it's actually fasting for the senses. The senses may undergo fasting, but the soul rejoices in its proximity to God. That is upavas.
Beautiful. In fact, there is an interpretation of what Lakshmana goes through in those 14 years, where he's said to have given up sleep and food for 14 years.
Okay.
In fact, it is said that he is so much lost in the service of Rama and Mother Sita that he doesn't sleep or doesn't eat. But actually, there's another interpretation which is very beautiful and something which we can relate to, where it is said that it is not that he forsake food and sleep, but he did not feed the body or rest the body.
Correct.
It's that the body, when it needed food, it ate. The body, when it needed sleep, it slept.
Oh.
I mean, it was not given anything. It was not pampered. And that is why he lived a life of a true yogi, which gave him the power to face, opponents such as Indrajit. And another kind of a light incident which I remember, not exactly light, very profound in fact, where one student, before he became a student, was in his attempt to join the junior college in Brindavan. It was way back in the late 70s. He didn't clear the entrance, so he came back to Prashant and Nilayam. Swami was here, and he thought he will do anything and earn Swami's grace and join the university. So he started putting his body through all kinds of rigors. He would eat only once a day, and then he would eat once in 2 days, and he had lost almost half his body weight.
Oh.
And he used to sleep very late and wake up very early. And he had become literally, a walking skeleton. And eventually, it took him so many months before Swami would actually even look at him. Swami would not even look at him. And finally, when Swami came by during darshan and picked him for an interview, and he was sharing with us the other day, he said he got up and he collapsed because he had no energy. He had troubled the body so much, literally. And Swami called him for an interview, and 2 people helped him till the interview room door, left him inside, and Swami came in. And the first thing which Swami tells him in the interview is, Swami very sternly tells him, I did not call you here because you starved yourself. I have called you only out of my compassion. Don't for a moment think that because you starved, you won this chance. Swami said, be very clear about that. And to drive that point home, Swami did not give him seat that year. Even though Swami called him for an interview and blessed him, Swami said, you have to understand that what you've done is wrong. Go back home and come next year. I'll take you.
Amazing, amazing. Like here is God directly teaching you, and as you said, it's like a myth buster, because the general understanding of spiritual life is, okay, I have maintained 52 upavasas or 32 upavasas throughout the year. It's not to belittle these practices, but when people actually understand the purpose of such an upavasa, it is to divert their mind from focusing on the body to focusing on the Atma. But unfortunately, if we do not have food, our mind is more focused on the body.
Right. That's what Swami used to say during Shivratri. He said, if you can give up food and not think about food, then give up food. Swami said, don't take it to a point where you're thinking of food and not having food.
Correct.
And in fact, you're talking about all religions emphasizing the importance of taking care of the body. Even Buddhism, even Buddha himself spoke about importance of moderation.
Moderation, yeah, because right in the beginning he went into that mode where he really did severe penance. And then he came about the realization that that is not what it is meant to be. And then he propounded the mode of moderation. And no excessive of anything, but at the same time you have sense control and no need to subject the body to severities.
And then this comparison of Swami making a diamond in a garbage heap does not lose its value.
Correct.
Right? Very beautifully put. And he says, just because a pumpkin grows in a thorny fence, its taste does not change.
As you sow, so you reap.
And it's also, an important thing of just extrapolating these examples. Literally, Swami saying that a body is holy, definitely, but it also needs some kind of things which enhances that holiness. Like just a couple of days back, the thought for the day was, it is not important, the standard of life is not as important as the way of life.
Okay.
Swami says that, and literally saying that if you think that the body is important and you shower it with luxuries and comfort, that does not mean that you are honoring the body. Swami says it's not the standard of life, it is the way of life. Swami says humility, love, compassion, that is what actually add value to human life, not the comfort that you live in.
Correct. So the correct understanding and approach to a spiritual life is so different, and so, it just directly appeals to you. The other day I was speaking to somebody, and we are in an age today where children, they start seeing television, and they know that what is being said in the advertisement is not right. It's not 100% right. Correct, because all advertisements, whatever said and done, are exaggerated.
Okay.
And children grow up with the knowledge that what they are seeing is not 100% right. So when the level of understanding, when the level of intelligence has really gone up by that measure, when you actually tell the truth and when you tell it in a convincing way, it is bound to have an impact. Because the level of grasping, in a sense, if you look at it, the kind of comforts and material benefits we have today, people from 40 years back could not dream of.
True.
But the rate at which people are getting disillusioned with this is also increasing.
Oh.
People, like if you look at today's economy and you see it's coming to a completion of the circle where, you go through that high and then you have to come back low and you have to become leveled. That's again not having too much of excessive on either side. The moment you start thinking too much only about yourself and selfishness, that's why he says all the religions propound this for a collective welfare. It's not for an individual welfare. Yes, an individual welfare, but also the collective welfare. So there is no excessive in any aspect. And that brings us back to the ground level.
Very beautiful. So shall we proceed to the next clip of this discourse, the second clip?
మానవుడంటే ఏమిటో అనేటువంటి సత్యాన్ని కూడా మనం అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి.
We should also realize what man really stands for.
ఇతను నిరంతరం కూడాను నూతనుడే. నిరంతరము నూతనుడే.
ceaselessly and continuously he is new.
ఇతను సనాతనుడు కాని పురాతనుడు కాని కాదు.
He is neither ancient nor modern.
ఎన్ని జన్మలు ఎత్తినప్పటికీ ఈ దేహము నిరంతరము నూతనంగానే ఉంటుంది.
Any number of births one may take, every birth is new.
మానవత్వం దివ్యత్వంతో కూడినటువంటి ఆత్మతత్వం అనేటువంటి సత్యాన్ని ఇది నిరూపిస్తుంది.
It also shows that the human life is basically associated with the divinity.
ఇది కొన్ని విధములైన విచారణ సలిపినప్పుడే దీని నిజ స్వరూపం మనకు గోచరమవుతుంది.
Only when you undertake proper inquiry, you would be able to realize this basic truth.
స్వస్వరూప సంధానమే దీని యొక్క నిష్ఠ.
The most important object is to realize who you really
ఇది
are.
నిష్ఠనే జ్ఞానమునకు సరి అయినటువంటి ద్రష్ట.
A real gnani is one who has this kind of
ఈ
real
ద్రష్ట
vision.
యొక్క సందర్శనమే భక్తి యొక్క ప్రభావము.
Getting darshan of the great souls is the very purpose of devotion.
ద్రష్టాధారం చేతనే దృష్టిని మనము అభివృద్ధి పరచుకొని సృష్టిని మనం అనుభవించాలి.
When you get the vision of association of great souls, you can get a real vision and then enjoy
అంతేకాని
real.
ఆకారం కూడినంత మాత్రమున మానవత్వం అనేటువంటి దాన్ని మనం సార్థకం గావించుకోవటం ఇది అవివేకము.
By merely getting a human form, you are not going to sanctify human life.
ఆకారం మానవాకారం ఉండవచ్చును.
In form, one may be a human.
దానవ గుణముల చేత ఈ మానవత్వాన్ని మరుగు చేయవచ్చును.
But by qualities, you might have hidden the real human nature and become
కనుక
a demon.
ఆకారమును చూచి మానవత్వంగా మనం భ్రమించరాదు.
We should not get deluded by merely looking at human form. to say
నిజమైన
that he is
మానవత్వం
human.
అనగా మా నవ, మా అనగా కాదు, నవ అనగా కొత్తది, కొత్తది కానటువంటిది మానవత్వము.
The real meaning of Manava, man, is the one who is not new.
అంతేకాక దీనికి మరొక అర్థం కూడా ఉంటున్నది.
There is one more meaning for this.
మా నా వా మూడు అక్షరంతో కూడినటువంటిది.
It is a 3-letter word, Manava.
మా అనగా అజ్ఞానము,
Ma refers to ignorance.
నా అనగా లేకుండా,
Na refers to not.
వా అనగా వర్తించటము.
Va refers to conduct.
అజ్ఞానం లేకుండా వర్తించేటువంటి వాడే మానవుడు అనేటువంటి సరైన అర్థం.
The one who conducts himself free from ignorance alone is man. This is the
కానీ
meaning.
అజ్ఞానముకు గురి అయి అశాంతికి లోనై దివ్యమైనటువంటి ఆత్మజ్ఞానము లభించాలంటే ఇది ఏ రీతిగా సాధ్యమవుతుంది?
If one is subjected to ignorance and lack of peace, how can he realize that he is really divine?
ఈ మానవత్వం అనేటువంటి దివ్యత్వాన్ని మనం మొట్టమొదట అర్థం చేసుకోవాలి.
In the very first instance, we should recognize this humanity as basically divinity
అర్థం
itself.
చేసుకునుక నానార్థములో అనర్థములు మాత్రమే ఉంచుకుని యథార్థమును విసర్జించడం చేత ఇది సత్యమైనటువంటి యొక్క స్వరూపం మనకు గుర్తించడానికి వీలు కాదు.
When one mistakes and misunderstands various meanings and misinterprets, one will not be able to understand the correct meaning and really enjoy the purpose of life.
ఆకుపచ్చ పచ్చులన్నీ చిలుకల వలె పలుకున,
Every green bird, can it be like a parrot? Can it?
పువ్వులపై పారాడెడు పురుగులు తుమ్మెదలగున.
Every worm that moves about on a flower, can you call it a bee?
పులి చర్మము కప్పినట్టు గాడిద తా పురియగున.
Just by wearing the skin of a tiger, can a donkey become a tiger?
ఏనుగంత బలిసి ఉన్న పంది ఏనుగ ఉంటున్నట్టయ్యా.
Just because a pig is as fat as an elephant, can it really become an elephant?
కనుక ఆకారమును చూచి మానవత్వంగా భ్రమించటము కేవలం అవివేకమే.
It is ignorance to consider the form alone and say that he is a human being.
మానవత్వం అనగా మనసు మాట క్రియయు
Humanity,
అన్ని ఒక్కటిగానే అతికి ఉంటాయి.
the one who unifies and harmonizes the word, thought and deed alone is a human being.
మాట యందు వేరు,
In word different,
పనుల యందు వేరు,
in action he is quite different,
వచనమందు వేరు.
and in thinking he is different.
ఈ విధమైనటువంటి మార్గమును అనుసరించినప్పుడు మానవత్వం ఎట్లవుతుంది?
How can a person be called if one is so different in different?
కనుక ధరించినటువంటి దేహము కనుకనే ఇది దేహము, ఒక దహించేటువంటి దేహం కనుకనే ఇది దేహము, జీర్ణించేటువంటి శరీరం కనుకనే ఇది శరీరము. ఇలాంటి ఆత్మతత్వం చేత దీనికి అనేక నామములు ఏర్పడుతూ వచ్చినవి.
This physical body has got different names like Dehamu because it gets burned down, Sariramu because it houses a Sariri, and it gets destroyed. That
దేహం
is,
ఒక నీటి బుడగ వంటిది.
the physical body is like a water
ఏ
bubble.
క్షణములో ఈ యొక్క నీటి బుడగ లీనమవుతూ నీటి యందు
In what moment this water bubble breaks down, we
అయితే
really
ఈ
do not
నీటి
know.
బుడగ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వచ్చింది?
But then from where did this
నీటి యందే
water bubble
పుట్టి,
come? It has come from water
నీటి యందే
itself.
పెరిగి,
It has grown in water.
నీటి యందే అణంగు నీటి బుడగ.
It has merged back into water itself.
నరుడు బుదంబు,
Man is water bubble.
నారాయణుడు నీరు.
Narayana is water.
కనుక ఈ బుడగ కేవలము నీటి నుండినే పుట్టినటువంటిదిగా ఉండినప్పుడు ఈ యొక్క నరుడు కూడాను నారాయణుడి నుంచినే ఆవిర్భవించినటువంటి వాడు.
Just as a water bubble has emerged from water, the man has emerged from Narayana, the
ఈ
Lord.
సత్యాన్ని మనం గుర్తించినప్పుడే శరీరము అలక్ష్యం చేయక, అశ్రద్ధ చేయక, తగినటువంటి రీతిగా దీనిని పోషించుకోవటానికి కృషి చేస్తాం.
Only when you recognize this basic truth, we will take steps to take care of this physical body in a proper way and look after its
ఇది
own
ఒక పనిముట్టు
welfare.
అయినప్పటికీ
Although this is only an instrument,
దీనికి తగినటువంటి యొక్క హద్దులు హంగులు కూడాను ఉండాలి.
there are certain rules and regulations which are prescribed to take care of that.
జగత్తునందు ప్రతి పదార్థమునకుడు కొన్ని నియమములు ఉంటున్నవి.
Every object in the world has certain rules and
నశ్రేయో
regulations.
నియమం వినా.
There is no welfare without
ఈ
a code of
దేహము కూడాను
conduct.
అనేక నియమములతో కూడినటువంటిది.
This physical body also has certain rules and
మన
limitations.
ప్రవర్తనలు ఎందు కానీ,
In our
మన
behavior,
చూపులు ఎందు కానీ,
in our looks,
మన మాటలు ఎందు కానీ,
in our words,
మన యొక్క భావములు ఎందు కానీ
in our feelings.
ఒక విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క పవిత్రతను మనము అభివృద్ధి పరచుకోవాలి.
We should always develop sacredness in all these things.
అట్లు పవిత్రము గావించుకొనక
Without that kind of
అనుగ్రహించినటువంటి
sacredness,
అంగములను అన్నిటి కూడాను అపవిత్రమైన మార్గంలో ప్రవేశపెట్టినప్పుడే మానవత్వము దానవత్వంగా మారిపోతుంది.
if one misuses and abuses the limbs of the physical body, the humanity becomes demonic.
మన జీవితం అంతా కూడా ఒక వ్యాపార రంగంగా ఉంటుండాలి.
Our entire life may be compared to a business field.
మన దేహములో ఉష్ణం అనేటువంటిది 99కే పోయిందంటే ఈ ఉష్ణము ఇది రోగంగా రూపొందుతుంది.
If the heat increases to 99 degrees, then we say it
మన
is
బ్లడ్ ప్రెషర్ కూడాను 120/80 ఉంటుంది.
similar is our blood pressure 120/80.
కానీ ఇది 90గా పోయిందంటే మన బ్లడ్ ప్రెషర్ కూడాను రోగంగా మారుతుంది.
If this 80 becomes 90, it becomes a disease.
మన ఐబాల్ కూడాను ఎంత వెళ్తురునో అంత వెళ్తురు మాత్రమే చూడగలదు. ఎక్కువ వెళ్తురునే చూసినప్పుడు మన రెటీనా బర్న్ అవుతుంది.
Even our eyeball can see a limited light. If it sees excessive light, the
మన
retina
ఇయర్
burns
డ్రమ్స్
down.
కూడాను అంతే, ఎంత శబ్దమో అంత శబ్దం వినగలదు. అమితమైనటువంటి శబ్దంనే విన్నప్పుడు మన ఇయర్ డ్రమ్ కూడాను బస్ట్ అవుతుంది.
Similar is with our eardrums. Limited sound is okay, otherwise they burst.
కనుక మన దేహమంతా కూడాను కేవలం ఒక లిమిటెడ్ కంపెనీ.
Our physical body may be compared to a limited company.
ఇలాంటి యొక్క దేహమును కాపాడుకోవటం కూడాను కొంత లిమిట్ కావాలి.
To take care of such a physical body, there are certain limits
దీనికి
prescribed.
తీసుకునే ఆహారంలోనూ కొంతవరకు పరిమితం ఉండాలి.
In the food partaken by this body,
త్రాగే నీరు ఎందుకు పరిమితం ఉండాలి.
in also the water that is
మాటలు
partaken,
ఎందు పరిమితము,
there is limit in words.
వినటం ఎందు పరిమితము.
In hearing, there is a limit.
మన జీవితం అంతా కూడా ఒక పరిమితమైనటువంటిదిగా ఉంటుండాలి.
Our entire life consists of certain limits and limitations.
పరిమితములకు మితిమీరినప్పుడే ఇది ఒక ప్రమాదమునకు గురి అవుతుంది.
When one exceeds the limit, then one faces the danger.
అతి తిండి మతి హాని, మిత తిండి అతి హాయి.
Excessive food makes one go mad.
అతి
And
భాష
limited-
మతి హాని, మిత భాష అతి హాయి.
excessive talk makes a person
కనుకనే
undergo a danger.
మానవుడు ఈ దేహమును ఏ విధమైనటువంటి ఒక మార్గంలో అనుభవింప చేసుకోవాలో ఆ ఆనందమునకు సరి అయినటువంటి మార్గమునే మనం అనుసరించాలి.
We have to undertake such path which can really confer joy on us in using our physical body.
This segment, Swami starts off with a very powerful statement. He says, man is new. Nutanam. Man is always new. And, scientifically also, we would, if we study science, we know that our skin is constantly changing.
Right.
And I think in a certain number of years, our entire bone structure also changes. And all the bones in our body changes. So in a way, even Swami says man is always new. Absolutely true, even scientifically.
In fact, just a small correction. I feel the point that Swami is making, the body one has assumed is new.
Yeah, but yeah,
because the connection that Swami gives is very beautiful. Yes, Swami saying that the body one is now assumed is new. And the body is new, as you said, the regeneration of the cells. And later, Swami is saying Manava. Manava, the one who is not new. So Swami is saying, when I say Manava, it does not refer to your body.
Correct.
Because the body is new, and the Manava is one who is ancient.
Correct.
Who is not one of, the recent origin.
And the definition of bhakti that Swami actually gives here is amazing. Bhakti is actually devotion to the self.
Right. And the way Swami puts it is so wonderful, right? The drashta, the one who through prolonged contemplation sees the self is a drashta, a seer. And the ultimate aim of bhakti is to become a drashta. That bhakti which leads you to becoming a drashta, the one whose mind is always fixed on the self, that is true bhakti.
Correct. See, actually, in a sense, Swami says that everything is a reflection, and where here he is talking about moderation and not having excessive of anything. And a couple of times Swami has also mentioned the natural calamities that we are actually facing today all around is because of man's greed, because he wants more. This is what nature can give you. That's true in the case of everything, fossil fuels, you take deforestation, anything. And but just because he has got the freedom to act, I just think God would have thought, while creating man, yes, I'm creating man, but I'm also giving him buddhi and discrimination. That is very conveniently locked up in some corner. Just excessive use of things. And if I start using more than what I actually need, as Gandhi rightly said, the earth has got
enough for every man's need,
but not
one man's greed.
That's true. So everything has to be under moderation, and that's what he goes on to give that example of temperature, body temperature and blood pressure.
And before Swami comes to that point, Swami says that just because you have the form of a human, you don't become man. In those series of examples that Swami gives so poetically, just because a pig grows fat, it does not become an elephant. Just because it's a green bird, it cannot become a parrot. And
just because a donkey is covered with a tiger skin, it cannot become a tiger.
And talking of this, what makes a person a true human? It's again something which Swami repeats very often. In other discourses of Swami, where Swami says that what is the fulfillment of man?
Okay.
And if man does not progress towards that, how can he call himself man? It's a very typical example. What is made for a certain purpose is actually worth its existence only if it fulfills that purpose.
Very true.
You make any object, if we are going to cook something, let's say, we make a dish. The fulfillment of the dish is when somebody eats it. And something which takes in, half an hour to 1 hour's effort, you feel so hurt when it doesn't attain its fulfillment. And here is this human body which is made in the most complex of manners. Even if you look at it in an absolutely worldly sense, to make one human body, it undergoes 9 months of process before it comes to this one. And you can imagine, you can relate to the pain with which Swami is saying this, that how can you call yourself human being if you are not proceeding towards the path for which you were made? And Swami is clearly making that to start with, it's to have harmonized thoughts, words and deeds.
In fact, that's what he calls as tapas. True tapas, it's not just penance, the unity of thought, word and deed. And it's not each one on its own. Manasekam means it's not Manasekam separately on its own and Vachasekam is on its own. It is all together.
Right. And again, when Swami says Trikarna Shuddhi.
Correct.
It is not enough if all of them are in the wrong direction. Together, unity in the wrong,
Correct.
in the evil act.
Correct. It should be aligned with purity. Correct.
Talking of Swami emphasizing the importance of taking care of this body, there's a very interesting analogy. If you look at mirrors, the mirrors which we use every day, a piece of mirror might cost you 10 or 20 rupees or, about 50 rupees, let's say. A same size mirror which is used in satellites as reflector, one mirror can cost up to $1 million.
Oh.
Because, the perfection of that mirror is around 99.9%. Not even 100, it's only 99.99 or whatever. And it is said that if you want to reflect a signal over few thousand miles or few 100,000 miles, that mirror has to be so much more perfect in its making. It has to be so much more flat.
Wow.
The mirrors which we use are way away from that kind of perfection. So if you just compare that to the human body, the farther the distance you're looking at traveling, the more lofty your goal is, the more perfect the body has to be taken care of as.
Very beautiful. Very beautiful. Very beautiful. I mean, this kind of right understanding and the right approach towards spirituality, we are really fortunate to have got access to that.
Definitely. I think there's another small clip which is about 6 minutes. We will probably conclude with that clip. We will listen to that.
Okay, sure.
మానవులకు 5 విధములైనటువంటి యొక్క విచారణ శక్తులు ఉంటున్నవి.
There are 5 types of thinking power in every human
దానినే
being.
ఒక జ్ఞానం అన్నారు.
And that has been described as జ్ఞానం.
ఈనాడు సామాన్యంగా ప్రపంచమంతటి కూడా సర్వత్రా వ్యాపించినటువంటి జ్ఞానము ఒకటి. అదే తెలివితేటలతో కూడినటువంటిది.
The type of knowledge which is available in the world and which is all pervasive,
దీనినే
is one
మొట్టమొదటి
type.
దాన్ని బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జి అన్నారు.
This type of knowledge is called bookish knowledge.
ఈ బుకిష్ నాలెడ్జి నుంచి కూడా సూపర్ఫిషియల్ నాలెడ్జిగా మారిపోయింది.
This bookish knowledge has given birth to superficial knowledge.
ఈ సూపర్ఫిషియల్ నాలెడ్జి లోపలే మన జీవితం అంతా వ్యర్థం చేసుకుంటున్నాము.
We are wasting our entire life in this superficial
ఈ
knowledge.
వయసునందు ఈ మానవునికి ఉండవలసినటువంటి జనరల్ నాలెడ్జి, కామన్ సెన్స్ జీరోగా ఉంటుండాలి.
What is required as general knowledge and common sense for man is a big zero in
కనుక
him.
జనరల్ నాలెడ్జి, కామన్ సెన్స్ అనేటువంటిది కేవలం విద్య వల్ల లభించేటువంటిది కాదు.
General knowledge and common sense cannot be acquired through books.
నిత్య జీవితంలో కర్తవ్య ధర్మం వల్లనే మనకు ఈ యొక్క జనరల్ నాలెడ్జిని మనము పోషించుకోవచ్చును.
One can protect and acquire general knowledge through daily living
సమాజ
life
సేవ
properly.
వల్ల, సమాజ సంపర్కం వల్ల ఈ జనరల్ నాలెడ్జిని మనం పోషించుకోవడానికి అవకాశం ఉంటుండాలి.
It is possible to foster general knowledge by being a servant of the society and serving the
ఇంకా
society.
4వది డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ నాలెడ్జి.
The 4th one is discrimination knowledge.
ఈ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ నాలెడ్జి ఈనాడు ఏ విధంగా ఉంటుందని మనం విచారించేసినప్పుడు,
When you think of how this discrimination
ఇది
knowledge is functioning,
స్వార్థపరమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ గా ఉంటుండాలి.
man is using it only as a selfish
తమ
discrimination
దోషాలు
knowledge.
తాము కొంతవరకు సమన్వయం చేసుకునేటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ గా ఉంటుండాలి.
Discrimination knowledge is used only to defend his own defects.
ఇది వ్యక్తి సంబంధమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ గా ఉంటుండాలి.
This is only an individual discrimination knowledge.
కనుకనే ఈ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ పెడమార్గం పడుతుండాలి.
That is why this discrimination is going on the wrong
ఇది
path.
సరైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ కాదు.
This is not proper discrimination.
సమష్టి సంబంధమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ మనకు కావాలి.
Discrimination collectively applicable is what is needed now.
ఎవరికి వాడు సమర్థించుకునేటువంటి యొక్క డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ చూస్తున్నాడు. నాది రైట్, నాది రైట్, నాది రైట్.
Man is using discrimination to defend and say that it is his right, his right.
ఇది స్వార్థపరమైనటువంటి యొక్క డిస్క్రిమినేషన్.
This is selfish discrimination.
అందువలనే యువకులైనటువంటి వారు చాలా పెడమార్గం పట్టడానికి అవకాశం ఏర్పడుతుండాలి.
That is the reason why the youth are prompted to go on the wrong path.
ఇది ఫండమెంటల్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ కావాలి.
It should be transformed into fundamental discrimination knowledge.
ఎవరికి సంబంధించినటువంటి అందరికీ సమన్వయమైనటువంటి యొక్క డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ గా ఉంటుండాలి.
The discrimination must be such that it is applicable to all people, not to one
2
alone.
+ 2 = 4. ఇది రష్యన్స్ కానీ, చైనీస్ కానీ, అమెరికన్స్ కానీ, పాకిస్తాన్ వాళ్ళు కానీ, ఇండియన్స్ కానీ అందరూ ఇది సమంగా ఒప్పుకో తప్పదు.
2 + 2 is 4, whether it is Russians, Pakistanis, Chinese or Indians or any
కానీ ఇక్కడ
nation.
ఒక ఆధ్యాత్మిక మార్గం లోపల
But in the world of spirituality,
3 - 1 = 1 అంటుంది.
3 minus 1 equals 1.
కానీ ఇది ఎవ్వరు కూడా అంగీకరించరు.
But people will not agree for this.
ఇది కేవలం ఒక ఫండమెంటల్ కాకుండా ఇండివిజువల్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ గా రూపొందుతున్నట్టు ఉంటుంది.
People who defend are thinking in terms of individual
కానీ
discrimination.
ఆధ్యాత్మికము అలాంటి సంకుచితమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ ఏనాడు కూడా చేయదు.
Spirituality will never undertake such narrow
వారు అర్థం
discrimination.
తెలుసుకోలేక లేక విచారణ చేసుకోలేక ఇది కేవలము వ్యక్తిగతమైనటువంటి యొక్క విచారణ శక్తిని అనుకోవచ్చును.
They may think without understanding, without proper inquiry, that this is used.
ఏ వ్యక్తిని మనం ప్రశ్నించినప్పటికీ 3 minus 1 is equal 1 అంటే ఎవరు కూడా ఇది మ్యాథమెటిక్స్ లో తప్పు అంటారు.
Whomsoever you ask, whether it is 3 minus 1 is 1, they will say, no, this is wrong.
కానీ ఇది రైట్ అని నేను వాదిస్తాను.
But I say that this is right.
కారణం ఏమిటి?
What is the reason?
ఇది వ్యక్తిగతమైనటువంటిది కాదు,
The reason is it is not individual.
విశ్వ
discrimination.
సంబంధమైనటువంటిది,
It is collective.
ఆత్మ సంబంధమైనటువంటిది,
It is with reference to
అమర
Atma.
సంబంధమైనటువంటిది,
It is with reference to him, humanity.
అమృత సంబంధమైనటువంటిది.
It is associated with
ఇది ఏ యొక్క
immortality.
విచారణ శక్తి ద్వారా కూడా ఇది మార్పు చెందడానికి వీలు కాదు.
This cannot be changed by thinking and arguing.
కనుకనే ఇది ఈ విధమైనటువంటి డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ లోపల కొన్ని విధమైనటువంటి మార్పు కలగడం చేతనే మానవత్వాన్ని సక్రమమైన మార్గంలో గుర్తించలేకపోతున్నారు.
As people are going on the wrong thinking, they have not been able to recognize humanity.
కారణం ఏమిటి?
What is the reason?
ఐదవ విచారణా శక్తి అత్యవసరము.
The fifth type of knowledge is very
ఏది అది?
essential.
ఐదవది ప్రాక్టికల్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్. ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జిగా ఉండాలి.
And that is practical knowledge.
ఈ ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జి లేకపోవటం చేతనే ఇన్ని విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆపోహలకు గురి అయిపోతున్నారు మానవుడు.
Man is getting innumerable doubts because he doesn't have practical knowledge.
ప్రతి విషయంలో కూడా ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జి కావాలి.
Practical knowledge is essential for everything.
ఈనాడు ప్రాక్టికల్ నాలెడ్జ్ అంటే ఏమిటో వాళ్ళకి అర్థం కావటం లేదు.
Today, man has not been able to
ఏ వ్యక్తి
understand.
తనకు సంబంధించినటువంటిది తన యొక్క అనుభూతిగా భావిస్తున్నాడు.
Each one is considering on the basis of his own limited experience.
నేను సమాజంలో ఒక్కడిని,
I am one among many in the society.
సమాజం యొక్క సమష్టి అతృప్తిని కూడా నేను అనుభవించాలి.
I must aspire to have the satisfaction of the entire society.
ఇక్కడ చక్కని విచారణ చేయాలి.
Let us think properly here.
సముద్రం నుంచి ఏ రీతిగా అలలు ఉద్భవిస్తున్నావో,
Just as waves are emerging from ocean,
సూర్యుడి నుంచి కిరణములు ఏ విధంగా ఆవిర్భవిస్తున్నావో,
just as rays are emerging from sun,
ఒక్క దైవం నుంచినే ఆవిర్భవించినటువంటిదే ప్రేమ.
love has emerged from God in the same way.
ఈ ప్రేమ అనేటువంటిది భగవంతునికి ప్రేమకు ఎట్టి విభాగము లేదు.
There is no difference whatsoever between God and love.
సూర్యునికి కిరణములకు ఏ విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క భేదములు ఉండవు.
There is no difference between sun and his rays.
సముద్రములకు అలలకు భిన్నమైనటువంటి మార్గం లేదు.
There is no difference between ocean and
ఇవన్నీ
the waves.
అవినాభావ సంబంధము, అన్యోన్యాశ్రయము.
They are mutually related and interdependent.
అదే విధంగానే ఈ దేహమును కూడాను దివ్యత్వమైనటువంటి ఆత్మతత్వములకు సంబంధించినటువంటి యొక్క సత్యాన్ని మనం గుర్తించాలి.
Such is the relationship between this physical body and Atma. This truth we should recognize.
దేహమందు ఆత్మదేవుడు ఉండెను సుమా.
In this physical body there is God, Atma.
Yes, the Swami is making some very beautiful points in that thing. Swami starts out by talking about the different kinds of knowledge.
Correct.
And, very beautifully, when one listens to this discourse, one might think only about the individual. Swami is talking about the body, talking about man and how an individual should take care of himself and be focused on his goal.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautifully, Swami brings in the aspect of a society here.
Correct.
Where Swami first talks of, what is known as bookish knowledge, the knowledge that you accumulate by learning, by reading and all that. And then Swami says the common sense or the practical knowledge. And Swami says that you can develop that by doing seva, by involving yourself in activity in the society. And that practical knowledge which comes should again be used for the service of the society. A very, very beautiful way of Swami putting it. And Swami saying that this kind of harmonious living will lead to discrimination, knowledge. Because discrimination is not based on self-interest.
When we go through this portion of the discourse, you see many successful people today, even in the material world, not all of them have, cleared degrees and got, graduated from big universities. Like many of the very successful top-notch people are employing MBAs and others. That's because they use their practical knowledge.
Absolutely.
And if we take an example like the Tatas, for example, the amount of good that they have done to the society, and that entire Jamshedpur, and how they brought up the entire society along with them. And that's what Swami is saying here. I mean, just bookish knowledge and thinking only of your success, and that beautiful point of how youth try to defend themselves today. That is because of not using discrimination knowledge. So you try to defend that, after all, I have earned this money, I can use it the way I want. Now, like, if everybody says that, what's going to happen in a society?
And Swami talks of discrimination knowledge and practical knowledge. Swami often uses the word yukti. Smartness.
Correct.
And there are many analogies and short stories which Swami says. But, before we start thinking smartly, Swami is also telling that, this should be used for greater good.
Correct.
That should always be in the back of your mind, that this should be, whenever I listen to Swami saying this, there's this concept of carbon credits.
Okay.
Where every country now is realizing that we've emitted too much carbon into the atmosphere, and that is spoiling the environment. So the whole world is coming together and saying that we have to reduce the use of objects which increase this carbon emission. So they say that each country is allowed to in a year let out only this much of carbon dioxide and other products into the atmosphere. So now the yukti which comes in, countries which cannot step down their emission, they buy it from countries which are underutilizing this ability to send carbon into the atmosphere. So if there are some African countries which are less industrialized compared to the Western countries, the more developed countries, so they buy it for millions of dollars. So that carbon dioxide which you are not able to release, let it be that it gets taken care of, the carbon dioxide which I release. So this is why Swami is saying that yukti should be there, that discrimination knowledge, that practical, smart, cheeky knowledge should be there, but that should always be for the benefit of all.
And it should not be to defend. He says, based on swarthamu. Like, it all comes back to sealing on desires. And unless people think that this is enough for me, I need not have the moon. I can be happy with what I have.
And as you said, I think that is one thing which is becoming predominant now. Because the usage of things are increased completely. What is happening is people are faster realizing that these are not objects which give them joy.
Exactly.
Like, the more you have it, the more you realize that I'm chasing something which is not giving me joy. And that is why that practical knowledge, you keep yourself open to this wisdom.
Correct.
Otherwise you might be running after it and you might spend a lifetime without realizing it. You practically keep yourself open to the fact that you're not getting the joy which you seek from these objects, so that you can stop, think and,
in a way, if you look at it, it's also false hope. You're trying to give something more where actually it is not there. Like, this is all that your body can take. This is all that the body requires. You're trying to pamper it by giving it more. There's a very funny thing that happened to my friend. He went to a 5-star hotel. He went in for the first time, and he saw the menu card and he said, oh, I would like this item. He thought that's something very, posh and very exotic. So it was written, fresh rainwater. Okay. So he thought, wow, this sounds like some amazing dish, let me order it. And he was brought a crystal clear glass in which there was water. He said, but this is water. He said, that's exactly what it is. It is fresh rainwater, water collected by putting this glass on top of the building to collect the fresh rainwater. I mean, there is only a certain limit to which you can pamper the body, and you cannot give it more than what actually is. There is some kind of a false pampering of the body. Say that, okay, just because I have more money, I am healthier than you. It's not the fact. It's not true.
In fact, there is one incident which happens in the life of the Saint Samarth Ramdas. It is said that one day suddenly he develops a craving for eating rice pudding, what you call payasam, the milk rice pudding. Suddenly this desire to have rice pudding, and he says that this is wrong. Why is the desire coming? I'm a person who's a yogi who has given up all these things. Why is the desire coming? So he says, okay, let me teach this body a lesson. So he asks his disciples to get a huge vessel of rice pudding. Okay, and he starts eating it. So after a few servings he's done. The craving is stopped. And he's internally telling himself, no, you eat more. You eat more. He forces himself to eat so much that at the end of it he pukes and the whole thing comes out. And he says, now you know that the craving for what you had, the joy actually does not come from the rice pudding, because if it comes from that, the more you take, the more it should come.
Correct.
And the scenario in the world is right now, I think that without our knowledge, I think Swami is making each one of us do that, overeat and
Correct.
make us realize, get us saturated and make us realize that happiness does not increase with increase in fulfilling of this desire.
At the end of the day, you lie down on the bed, and if you do not get sleep, what's the point in having sleeping in a 5-star hotel with an air-conditioned room and a Dunlop mattress? At the end of the day, what you need is sleep.
And that's where Swami ends this clip by saying that God cannot be separated from love. God is the source of love. I mean, though it sounds a bit disjointed, I feel it is that. Swami is trying to drive the lesson that the easiest identifiable entity which Swami is God is left with man is love. It's almost like a hint which God is left, because that's the easiest way to hold on to something, and these are hints in the treasure hunt which will lead you to God.
In fact, he is comparing it to the interdependency of the individual to the society. He says the individual and the society are as interdependent as the rays of the sun and the sun itself.
Right.
You can't separate the two. And so is the case with God and love. I think we have overstepped our time.
Yes, I think we'll bring this discussion to a close. Beautiful discourse, and we are really keen to go ahead and listen to what Swami has to say in the rest of the discourse, but we will have to wait till the next week for that. So dear listeners, do join us again on Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam next week. I and Sai Prakash express our deepest gratitude to Swami for giving us this opportunity to listen and reflect upon his message, and we are grateful to all our listeners for joining us and giving us company.
Sairam, you just heard an episode of our radio series Shravanam Mananam Nididhyasanam, that is, listen, reflect and absorb. This is a segment that is hosted live on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. by Radio Sai's Sai Prakash and Prem, only on Asia stream of Radio Sai Global Harmony. Today's episode was first broadcast live on 30th May 2013. The discourses undertaken for study in this program are from the series of discourses delivered as part of the summer course in Indian Culture and Spirituality, 1990. Today, the clips played were from the discourse delivered on the evening of 20th May, 1990. To listen to the next part of this program, tune in same day, same time, next week. Please do write to us and let us know what you think about this program by writing to listener@radiosai.org. Thank you and Sai Ram from Prashant Nilayam.